Now the different views we saw before, they aggregate finally to the RS house. The RS house with the control view, as said before, in the center. Then the organization on top. So you model what the organizational structure is on top of the RS house. You have products, you have services which somehow contribute to a certain process step or which might come out as a result from a process step. And on the left side there are data which are required for executing the business process, and on the right side the functions which should be available in the software if you somehow want to support the business process, especially the business process steps, with functions in the software. So that doesn't mean that the functions only refer to the automatic part of the business process execution, but maybe also to the manual part, which somehow collects data, which somehow produces data, and therefore you need functions or basically forms where you put in the data or where you get data from for your business process. And now basically you can put in the pictures which we collected before into these different parts. So in the center there's this control view, and here you see a control view which is almost an EPC, almost event-driven process chain. It's quite not exactly the modeling approach, because the sequence of event activity is not followed, but in the main characteristics you have this event-driven process chain here, and just take it as a sketch for a business process. A business process where things are aggregated together, like data on top and resources on the bottom part. And in the center there are the different process steps which have to be executed in the sequence. On top you see a very small model of the organization. So there's the overall enterprise with different departments. The production department, maybe the sales department also. Maybe you also have a HR department, maybe also a procurement department, whatever. It's just a sketch here where you see that the enterprise consists of different departments. And in a department there you can have a job or a job description, like here the device assembler we used for the assembling of the device, and you can refer to these jobs which are somehow assigned to the departments. On the left side you see a very rough description of a data model. Actually that's not the correct model if we refer to enterprise, if you refer to entity relationship modeling, for example. It's rather a sketch of the principle that there are customers and there are orders. On the right side you somehow want to depict the relation to the software which somehow should support the business process. And here as a top node in this graphic you see that produce device is the node in which you have to go if you want to use the functions for the production of the device. So below produce device there's test components. Maybe you find some forms there for testing the components, forms telling you what components to test, maybe also forms telling you that you have to measure something, that you have to gather some data about the components, and then you have to fill out the forms. You have to save these data such that you can later aggregate the data and analyze maybe also. The same for a sample device. A sample device is also supported by a function. And finally, test device also support for the activity of the testing of the assembled device. And again, it can be form, it can be form showing you some information, or it can be a form which requires you to put in some data from the testing, and therewith maybe the test report is generated. On the bottom, we have the product or service view, and you see that there is as a top node the delivery of devices. So you somehow have to fulfill the order, somehow have to produce the devices which are required by the customer. And there are subnodes like the electronic device, the order actually, which contains somehow the data and which somehow relates to the electronic devices, obviously, and the delivery. So you have to also care about the logistics part of your order, such that the product finally reaches its destination, finally reaches the customer. And this picture here is actually a very rough sketch, a very rough overall view of an Ares house. There are some methods, so to say, mentioned in the different parts, like data modeling on the left side, functional modeling on the right side, and so on. But actually there are in each part three different layers, which about which we talk later, and 3 layers which help us to come from this business perspective into the technology for the realization of the software, for the realization of the process execution. Now we can also look onto the relations between the different parts of our Ares house. So we can look into the components, into parts of the components in detail, like for example the order. The order which is mentioned in the data model on the left side. And here as an example relation, there is a relation drawn to the order which is accepted. The order which is accepted in the business process and which then leads to the production of the devices, or which gives the information of the production of the devices. And there is, you have this relation between the order in the data model and the order which is somehow required in the execution of the business process in the control view. Also, you have a relation from the order to the product or service view on the bottom. So there the order is a kind of product, kind of thing which was produced within the business process. The order which is done was fulfilled by performing the steps in your business process. And if you then want to make the relation between the bottom product or service view, then you can also go to the control view. You see that the order which is done then relates to, again, the control view, and you see that there's a relation between the product service view and the control view. As mentioned before, you also have strong relations between your activities in the center in the control view and your functional view on the right side. So here is taken out the test device activity in the center, and this relates to a test device function in your software. In your functional view, the test device function supports this activity. So in therewith you have this strong relation between your control view and your functional view. Both views depend on each other. And finally, if you look onto the organization, you also have aspects of the organization which are important for the control view, for example. So as you can see here, the device assembler contributes to the activities. The connection is made from the device assembler to the activities test components, assemble device, and test device. And therewith, the device assembler obviously is responsible for these activities, and the device assembler is assigned to a certain department, the production department. That's basically something what we looked on a little bit in the slides before, where we had the production department also connected to the device assembler. And here now the relation is shown to the organizational view, where we model the whole organization. So these red lines with the dots at the ends are actually not part of the model. It's just to show you these relations. And actually, if you model your RS house for your organization with all the processes, with all the functions, data, product, services, organization parts, then you should also see implicitly such connections which somehow are established by the terms you use. So here you see the same term is used for order, for example, or the device assembler, or the test device, and so on. And these same terms then identify that you have these connections and that somehow the views depend on each other.